afternoon, Carson from Germany. First of all, I would like to say that this is a great honor for me to be a speaker at this program today. And I would love to be with you today on site, but unfortunately it's not possible for me at this time. I would like to thank Professor Shia Onyeweso and his whole team of the CBCIU. We have been working together and collaborating together for many years now, and the CBCIU has been instrumental in helping me complete many hours of a very productive and informative research in Osogbo. And I will say maybe later more about this, but I just wanted to emphasize what a great pleasure and honor it is able to present today. Let me just say a few words before. So, as it was mentioned in the introduction, thank you very much for this. Within the Bayreuth International Graduate School of African Arts, I have been writing my PhD on the work of Susanne Wenger in the context of Nigerian modern art. Today, there will be many experts with you in the audience, and I'm sure that most of those present there with you can speak more aptly about the sacred groves, the meaning as a World Heritage Site, their role as an active place for the Yoruba community, and what the future holds in terms of maintenance. But to understand Wenger's role and motivations in the context of the ocean groves, it is also central to understand her concept of art, her role as a re-owned international artist, and her legacy in the context of other Nigerian modernist movements that are inextricably linked to the sacred groves. My presentation is based on my research entitled for my PhD project titled New Sacred Art, the works of Susanne Wenger in the context of Nigerian modernism. And it focuses, of course, on the New Sacred Art movement with Susanne Wenger as a central figure, and its aesthetics from a visual studies perspective. And I'm using iconological methods and a descriptive and analysis of the corpus. The oeuvre will then critically examined, integrated, and located in the social, political, and art historical discourses between Austria and Nigerian modernism and post-colonial theories. So speaking of the modern, let me briefly explain why this theory and concept is so important to emphasize for me, as it offers the framework for my PhD as a holistic approach. The intertwining of art and national ideologies is considered a characteristic of post-colonial modernism as an international phenomenon. And these relationships have been largely neglected, and thus understanding about the development of modernism in Nigeria remains fragmentary. This understanding must be fundamentally present to trace and fill the gaps in the history of art in Nigeria. And my PhD aims at contributing to the writing of art history with the help of a dense analysis of Wenger's artistic output. So let me just start with this quote, and I want to read it out loud. It's a quote by Susanne Wenger. Impatient and self-willed emancipation of the individual mind is the criterion of modern man. Thus the shrine that dwells in men have to be new and original in their concept of the enduringly divine. If not, they are falsely affecting the spiritual flow. Their symbolism must encourage new interpretation, individual spontaneity, and spiritual independence, which modern man needs to experience with his gods. And I choose to start with this quote because for me it sums up very well the guiding principle and motivation Susanne Wenger used to create her life's work at the Groves. I look at Wenger and the New Sacred Art movement from a decidedly art historical perspective, looking at art historical contexts, and imagine huge science-specific theories, starting from the image or the object and zooming out. But especially in the context of the sculptures and shrines in the groves, and to understand Wenger's idea, it becomes clear how linked artistic and spiritual ideas are in her work. But philosophical, humanistic concepts also come into play here, and that is exactly what fascinates me so much about her as an artist. But it is also the reason why her artistic productions are of such far-reaching significance. Her deep immersion in the Yoruba community and religion, especially in Osogbo, where she initiated and implemented new forms of expression as a priestess and artist of the new sacred art movement, significantly shapes her artistic work. In the following, I would like to give a short biographical outline and show why she is also of great importance for the international history of art. You will not only see pictures of the groves, but an insight into the variety of her artistic media. Susanne Wenger was born in the Austrian city of Graz on July 4th, 1915, as a daughter of a high school teacher of modern languages and an officer's daughter. According to her own statement, she discovered her interest in art and her involvement with religion and spiritual ideas at a very early age. She speaks of a dynamic force that she saw maturing within her at an early age, which she later identifies and refers to as the creative suffering through prevented holiness. Her particular attachment to nature, and especially to trees, is evident from early years of her childhood, as she records glimpses into the sunlit grown of the great linden tree in the garden. The impression of these structures leads to an image that becomes fixed in Susanne Wenger's mind and that could be described as iconographically important. Indeed, trees and plant structures remain present in her works and are even included in the later works in the new sacred groves in Osogbo. Due to the fact that Graz, the Austrian city of Graz, did not have an art school, Susanne Wenger attended the Kunstgewerbeschule, which is more arts and crafts, and took ceramics there. A situation about which she says in 1990 in an interview with Uli Bayer, what at first seems like a coincidence actually leads you in your own direction. There's a straight path from the very early works to what I do today, because my clay shrines are really a kind of ceramics. Wenger graduated from the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna in 1937. When the beginning of World War II shook the world in 1939, artists and scientists were persecuted or severely restricted in their work if they did not conform to National Socialist ideology and their aesthetic guidelines. Wenger's work fell under the defamatory term degenerate art, and since she was banned from painting, she concentrated primarily on small format colored pencil drawings. These are the pencil drawings I was referring to, and they are very important in her oeuvre. In these, she reflected on her perception of the war during the bombing attacks in Vienna and immersed her dream experiences in luminous, overwhelming depictions of fantastic beings. These works from the series of Traumgesichter, Dream Faces in English, are considered the first surrealist drawings by a female artist created in Austria under Nazi rule, and they really have a really important meaning within the Austrian art history and also European art history. After the war, Wenger co-founded the Vienna Art Club in 1947, and contemporaries like Picasso were close to her and participated in national and international exhibitions. In 1949, her path led her to Paris, where she felt like an outsider between the established artists in their competition for recognition. The encounter with Uli Bayer in Paris marked a decisive point in her artistic career and also in her private life. I don't say much about Uli Bayer now because I'm very sure that you all know a lot about him. So Uli Bayer, as you might know, had applied for a position at the university in Ibadan, which was only given to married couples. Wenger, quite disillusioned by the experiences of the World War, as you can imagine, was fascinated by the ideas and images that surrounded the African continent. She agreed to marry Bayer and went to Nigeria with him. Arrival and life in Ibadan initially turned out to be a disappointment for Wenger. Her English skills were poor, she felt isolated and disagreed with the colonial attitude of the predominantly European faculty. Unlike Bayer, she found it difficult to integrate into the secluded life on the remote university campus. Bayer's position at the extramural department took him to the Lantoro mental home in Abeokuta in 1951, a psychiatric institution where he and Susanne Wenger offered weekly painting courses for the patients. The works were exhibited at the University Library in Ibadan in 1952 under the title Psychotic Art. This project reflected Wenger's and Bayer's interest in the discourse around the concept of art brut by the French artist Jean Dubuffet, also known as outsider art. The concept meant art beyond established forms and trends in an anti-academic context, represented primarily in the art of children and amateurs, but also non-Western societies, supposed social and economic outsiders. While outsider art was considered a critique of the artistic and political establishment in post-war Europe, in post-independence African countries, the concept was directed against the colonial systems and their violent suppressions of creativity and artistic self-awareness. And with this I stated Peter Probst, who wrote a very interesting article on that. But here you can see how important this was for Wenger and Bayer and their concept of art. Already in 1953, during their stay in the city of Ede, and after Wenger had recovered from severe tuberculosis, she met the Ajagemo, priest of Obatala, who became a mentor and important spiritual reference point for her. The intimate relationship with him led to initiation as an Obatala priestess. Expressions of this overwhelming encounter with Ajagemo were a series of large-scale expressionistic oil paintings that helped Wenger visualize and process these intense experiences. They contrasted with her controlled wax batiks, which, apart from some regional textile patterns that filled the surfaces of the graphic batiks, did not use any traditional Yoruba formal language, but depicted exclusively Yoruba mythologies. The depiction of Orishas in the Yoruba pantheon is also found in the screen prints and lino cuts, which were made at the same times as the batiks. Her characteristically expressive overlength of the figures are found in many of her works. These overlays are interlocked and combined to form a cosmos as an entity, from which individual structures and forms are in turn derived. They are an expression of her formal language, which is decisively influenced by a European art experience, and you will find them in almost all of her works, and best observed in the sculptures in the sacred groves, as we will see later. Her and Bayer's move to Osogbo in 1958 marked another change for Wenger, who, at the same time, had to cope with the Ajagemo's death. While learning to die had been a gateway, as Musa Kone puts it, and I find it a very nice expression, into Yoruba society for Wenger, she aspired to be fully integrated. And I want to read out another quote by Wenger, which influenced me quite a lot. He, she's speaking about Uli Bayer, was full of enthusiasm. We must give them the tools, brushes and color, clay and cement, threads and glue and let them express their own world. They have so much to say. The world of Western culture was applauding, but I did not feel creative. Again, Uli's style of entering the traditional world without being really involved made me feel very uncomfortable. I need to get involved in a different way. I need to go deep. I need to go inside. I need to get lost in it. Wenger's desire to be a part of a community and to be fully immersed determined the situation decisively. When she received a request from the priestess of the goddess Osun in Osogbo to restore the shrines in the sacred groves, she took over the order. It was here that Wenger finally found her place, in the center of the Yoruba community. She founded the New Sacred Art Movement, a title that not only expressed her aspiration for a new, innovative, and thus modern formal language to serve the deities, but also a designation for the group of local artists she worked with. Young Yoruba artists from Osogbo who dedicated themselves to rehabilitating the sacred groves of Osogbo and implementing their own creative artistic expression there. Wenger recognized their artistic potential and supported them in their projects in the grove from then on. Shortly thereafter, cement sculptures CBCIU, Wenger's closest ally in the work at the grove, and Saka followed, as did woodcarvers Burainu Badamosu, Kasali Akumbe, and Radu Abeshu. All of the artists had been craftsmen such as carpenters, masons, or blacksmiths before they met. They assisted her in the remodeling, restoration, and constructions of the shrine in the sacred groves, but they also did their own sculptures, and they were independent artists who were paid for their work on the shrines by Wenger herself according to the union rate. The artist's material and salaries came from the sales of her artworks in Nigeria and in Europe. The experiment at the sacred groves grew out of Wenger's and Bayer's modern beliefs about the role of art in a society. Both believed that it was central for art to lead the spaces of the museum and become integrated into everyday life and thus accessible for everyone. Their agenda further related to a desired unification of art and culture to counteract the alienating effects of colonialism and capitalism and to revitalize Yoruba art, contrary to the widespread view in the 1950s in the Western world that African art was on the verge of collapse. However, the works of the New Sacred Art Movement contrasted with the traditional works of Yoruba artists, and they also differed in their choice of materials. Wenger and her colleagues mainly used cement to construct the monumental figures in the flowing, dynamic, and spontaneous forms. The difference that the New Sacred Art Group announced with their decisions for new techniques and forms were programmatic. It was the time after Nigeria's independence from colonial rule. The past and its effects were to be buried, and accordingly, a return to traditional forms and aesthetics were rejected. The only option was to find new, previously unknown forms of expression, new images that reflected the still undetermined future of Nigerian society. According to Wenger, the restored shrines in the sacred groves, as well as the newly created sculptures in Osogbo, should claim to be new, innovative, and thus modern. Otherwise, they would not serve the gods and would thus be false, as I quoted her on my very first slide when I started the presentation. Wenger and Bayer shared an understanding of art as a self-referential process of the autonomous mind disentangled from the past, which expresses itself artistically in free, idiosyncratic compositions. These were found in the variety of media Wenger created, culminating in the sacred grove sculptures. And what is also interesting is that Wenger saw her role within the new sacred art movement as part of a collective that was not only human, but also included the divine dimensions, the orishas. Moreover, Wenger understood her artistic activities within the movement as a catalyst for her own creative energy. I think yes. Quite yet. Anyways, this creative energy is fully exhausted in the construction of these truly unique sculptures, technically, formally, as well as in content. Formally speaking, the sculptures unite Wenger's entire oeuvre, yet the fullness and power of their formal language is reflected in the massive monuments. In my description of the sculptures, I am guided primarily by the text of Wolfgang Denk, artist and curator, founder of the Susanne Wenger Foundation in Krems, Austria, close friend and companion of Wenger since the 1980s, and the person who, along with Uli Bayer, has probably published most comprehensively on Wenger. Wolfgang Denk passed away a few months ago, a great artist and publicist, and I would like to commemorate him here today. I met him myself in Krems and was deeply impressed by his engagement in the Susanne Wenger Foundation and by his comprehensive artistic understanding in the access to Wenger's work. And I will quote him more often in the following minutes or paraphrase from conversations with Susanne Wenger and interviews he had with her, and quoting Susanne Wenger here through him. Wenger's first building activity included the reconstruction of the Uli Baba shrine. The first sculptures made of cement were also created there. The group formed from the first companions and the term new sacred art came to life. The Osogbo style became a quality term. Many of Nigeria's best-known artists today refer to Aduni Olonisha as their artistic mother and teacher, although Wenger never intended to teach, preferring a symbiotic exchange. Moreover, it was Adebisi Akanji who taught her and with whom she had an almost telepathic connection, as she claims it, as she was fascinated by his understandings of form and flow. At the same time, Susanne Wenger was also a collector herself, if you want to consider her like that. Her house in Ibukun Road, full of artworks, was bursting at the seams, gathering early companions who have since become renowned artists. In the Groves, Susanne Wenger was commissioned to build a meeting place for the Obono League or secret cult. She developed a three-nave ritual hall, richly sculptured inside and out. And this work became one of Wenger's most important works architecturally and sculpturally. And by this time it was already clear that the borders between architecture and fine arts or sculpture really, there were no more. And the complex corrugated metal roof with the large sculptures inside, outside, rising to the sky and defying all gravity show a bold composition and are emblematic of the sacred forces. Unfortunately, and due to time, I cannot go into detail here about all the works in the roof, and this applies incidentally to Wenger's comprehensive and extensive canon of works, which encompasses numerous media from drawings to batiks to mentioned here. At the sacred pottery field of Iamoko, Wenger and the new sacred art movement built and sculpted the boldest and largest island. The flowing forms are in harmony with nature, seemingly blowing back into the earth too high and in clouds and sky at the same time. The figure is massive, yet seems to float. Iamoko is 65 meters long and almost 40 meters high. The monumental sculpture is the protector of the women's trade. Two birds on the back and belly symbolizes death and life as the mystical equivalent of creation. 6 arms stretch out towards the light, and the almost 50-meter-long neck structure dramatizes the waves of the sacred river, and it's just, impressive. The figure Ella stretching into the sky, adolescent representative of the most secret principle of the Ifa oracle, connects the knowledge of the earth with the knowledge of the gods, the sky. It was created after 1970 and is about 8 meters high. Here too, it seems as if he defines all laws of gravity. And the Alajere figure group is the first to directly incorporate the structures of the natural forms of the rainforest and clearly demonstrates the spontaneity of construction. It represents the youthful power and the sacred trinity as a symbol of transformation. A special position in her oeuvre is occupied by the sculpture complex Odi, which clearly reflects her way of thinking and working. The artist Susanne Wenger began building the complicated sculpture group in '82. This special position and the surprising thing is that, according to Wenger herself, it was not her intention to ever finish it. The working process as an informal process is the essence, the actual access to the work, the ritual, so to say. And here we see again how Wenger also understood this process as meditation in solitude and in nature. And she began the sculpture as a conception of a pietà. Maybe it is known, for example, Picasso had a very well-known pietà, but not as in the Christian faith, where the mother has the son in her womb, but she describes it, and I'm quoting her, here is this blind father, Ifa, holding his dead son, Ella, who according to the myth was accidentally sacrificed. And this was a quote by her, and this gripped her very much. And as a mystical activity, she and her colleagues built sculptures that also protect nature and trees, as it was the case with this very important sculpture here. Susanne Wenger increasingly made use of her artistic freedom and, in contrast to traditional Yoruba architecture, which refrains from visualizing the cosmological references, tried to illustrate ritual meaning by means of form. With the complex in the sacred groves, she created a work that achieved world fame due to its unique symbiosis of nature, art, and religion. Wenger did not proceed according to a preconceived plan in the individual project, each of which is assigned a specific religious function, but rather described the design process as a ritual procedure during which she recognized the right form in meditative work. This is why she called her art New Sacred Art. Characteristic of the sculptures and shrines created collectively are proliferating, organic-looking forms, sometimes also with sexual connotations, which represent a radical break with traditional Yoruba aesthetics. Inspired by the idea that the spiritual significance of the ancient places of worship could only be reanimated with new forms, coming back to the first quote, Wenger, with her artistic creative will rooted in Europe, felt herself neither an intruder nor an accountable contractor, but rather an active part of a whole. And I'm quoting her with the next slide. The groves of Osogbo were condemned to death, but my conviction of the inner truth of the Yoruba religion was so strong that, as a living and modern person, not subject to traditions, I felt I had to build a powerhouse to protect these groves. I could do that because I was so involved only with my expression. I was not, after all, an employee, a builder, or an architect, but my devotion to this philosophy was not subject to any question. It was a fact for me and others. Let me just look at the Okay, I conclude my presentation now. Let me just go to... Let me just give me 1 minute, please. Let me just conclude with this quote because I find it quite nice to conclude with. Let me read it out. Nevertheless, the future belongs to synchronisms and not just a real loyalty to an inherited form. In the form of my shrine architecture, which is intended as an invocation of a future for the gods, I borrowed from the beauty of decay and collapse, which can be observed in ancient clay buildings. So thank you very much. I had to cut here because of time. I'm prepared for 30 minutes, but maybe I prolonged a bit. So thank you very much, and greetings to Osogbo. Thank you.